Hey, listeners, this is Shane, one of your hosts for RecLess. We're excited to be back for season four. We have new guests, a growing audience, and a new opportunity sponsorships. So if you would like to be featured or highlighted in a future episode, reach out to us at recklesspod@gmail.com. Once again, that is recklesspod@gmail.com. For everyone else, make sure you're following us on our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Have a chance to interact with Tom and Jay. Hell, I may even thumbs up something you say. So, to keep up with all the latest news and all of our stupid shenanigans, make sure you're following us. All right, now on with the show.
Welcome to Season 4 of RecLess, the podcast expanding your knowledge and making you smarter about the field of parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country bringing insights, industry stories, and a surprise guest each episode. Thanks for swinging by. We're glad you're here. This is RecLess.
Welcome to RecLess. This is our first episode of season 4. It feels like it's been months. I think it's only been weeks since the recap, but we have not recorded an actual guest episode in quite a time. So
Wow.
Anyhow, we're here. I'm excited, and as always, here with Jay Tryon and Shane Mize, trying to enlighten everybody on the world of parks and recreation, at least through our perspectives and a guest or guests. Guys, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. Happy to be back and kicking off another season.
Jay's been busy. He's a busy man. Program committee, Buffalo trip,
Had a trip to Buffalo. We got my son's playing travel football right now, so we
travel
have
football.
some travel tournaments going on. But yeah, trying to stay busy with everything, but keep pace with everything.
Was virtual in Orlando.
Yeah.
I was not in the in-person CPC meeting for the first time, and I will say it's not the same.
I was shocked they allowed y'all to do that because I didn't remember if that was a thing when I was around, but maybe the world's changed a little, I guess.
There was a couple of us actually that had to be virtual, so I wasn't the only one, but it's not the same. You don't engage as much as I normally would. It's hard to speak up when there's a room full of 25.
The times in the hallways, the times before, after, the social or whatever, those types of things. Yeah, no interaction.
Yeah, we're talking about the NRPA Annual Conference Program Committee. Jay serves on, Shane used to serve on, and
Tom's never served on.
And I have never served on, correct? And if I was serving currently, there would be no way that I would miss that mid-year meeting.
No, there would not. That one.
Orlando.
Not that one.
Not in Orlando.
No. I was actually going to text you, Jay, and I totally forgot, but I was hoping, you would maybe go grab a bite to eat and I could live vicariously through you in Disney, but you didn't even go.
No, I have to wait till September.
Okay. Well, we'll all do it together, Mickey years and all.
Deal.
All right, guys. Shane, deal?
Yeah, we've hit our stride already.
All right, guys. Before we get into our opener, I know the Bills did not have a favorable outcome in the AFC Championship, but last night was a big night for Bills Nation. The Bills Mafia took home an MVP from their very own Josh Allen. Yes, great speech, humble guy, said all the right things, and that's a nice thing for the city to be proud of, and it's a long time coming.
Yeah, the speech was great. The video that the Bills posted this morning was a million times better, and you'll have to search for it if people want to see it. But ultimately, to give a little bit more insight, Josh Allen is extremely involved in the community. They actually named a wing of the children's hospital after his grandmother when his grandmother passed away, literally during a game. So when his grandmother passed away, the city of Buffalo and Bills fans all over the country donated money to the Oshai Children's Hospital. So they named the wing after his grandmother. So he's there all the time. And there's a video that was posted by the Bills with all the kids he's actually spent time with and treating illnesses and diseases, of them congratulating Josh on getting the MVP. And he's crying watching the video. It's an awesome video. But it really shows, and he gives a little speech after that video, that it's not just about football. It's about making an impact and, working in your community, making a difference. So, which is really what we're doing here too. Really neat.
Yeah, you got to admit, with Bills fans, fanatic is never more of an apt term. Like whether it's jumping through tables on fire, or I have seen they are very philanthropic. That's the term, right?
Yeah.
They will, if someone does something good for them or they want to do a movement, they will donate lots of money or time or resources to
Yeah.
things as a fanatical base as well. So that's cool to see that they have some sort of balance on both sides of that.
Yeah, funny story too, right? In most of, I'm sure you guys know about this, and maybe most of our listeners do, but some might say Mark Andrews, tight end for Baltimore, obviously may have been one of the reasons that they didn't get into overtime or potentially win the game against the Bills. And the Bills fans, with him dropping and fumbling, donated a lot of money to his charities. Didn't a week or so after that, didn't Mark Andrews or didn't someone pay it forward to the Bills, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. So a Ravens fan started a GoFundMe and donated in, I can't remember which foundation it was, but yes. So I
After the
think it's
Chiefs won?
after the Chiefs game. So it's kind
Yeah.
of neat, just to see that. And it was it was Dalton Kincaid's foundation,
And he dropped the
you
ball.
know, because
Oh,
kind
wow.
of similar context. But yeah, it's really neat to see how the fan bases, not just Bills Mafia, but other fan bases have come together like that to do a good cause.
I think it's interesting, and I know we're getting off topic a little, but we talk about this at times when we're asked about leadership questions and the fear of failure and how some of our colleagues fear that opportunity to screw up, whether at a council meeting or at a conference or in their day-to-day work, because they're worried about how they'll be perceived. And the growth that happens to Kincaid or Andrews or any of those athletes or us on the other side of failure, on the other side of what that looks like when you dust yourself up, when you pick yourself up, when you maybe nail the next council meeting or you get the next CIP project right or whatever. I don't know if we as a society celebrate that as much, but you see it more measurably in athletics, right? Like for some reason, you can see it more measured in such a way where someone comes back and does something the next year and you're like, the end of this year was a failure for Mark Andrews and next year he was all pro or whatever it was. Former Boomer Sooner great, by the way, Mark Andrews.
Just there. Boomer
Yeah.
Sooner Town.
We were there. Boy,
So,
we've rambled today.
we did. Our guest is patiently, this was not the intro, everyone.
I love
So let's get in the intro. Super Bowl Sunday is in 2 days. You might think I'd ask your predictions, but it's KC and the Eagles, and we don't care because it's not the Bills, Patriots, or Seahawks. So
Right.
Sorry, Karen Hesser. Sorry, Michael Biedenstein. We are really not going to give any of our
Nate.
opinion. Oh, yeah, Nate's a big Chiefs guy. So
Yeah, I think Biedenstein's anti because of
Oh,
the
okay.
move. So I think definitely Nate.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So anyway, we're going to breeze right past that. But since we talked football, I wanted to mention it. What I do want to talk about today is 2025. Preface that a little bit with 2024. We had a really wonderful meetup at NRBA conference. We had 2 recorded episodes at NRBA conference. Jay and I went to Maryland and we recorded another one of those with the guest in person with Shane virtual in Maryland. And then Shane and I went to Oklahoma and did that with Jay virtually. And so we had some really cool new experiences. So I want to know what you guys are looking forward to in 2025. And it could be personal, it could be professional, it could be RecLess. I will go first and just keep it really quick and break some news for RecLess 2025. Individuals who listen to this, whenever this is released in a few weeks, are going to find out for the first time that the RecLess trio is traveling to Massachusetts together, all of us in person, to present and also record a live audience episode with all 3 of us and special guest from Massachusetts at their conference, their state conference, which is March 19th through 21st. I am really looking forward to that. I'm so excited to share that with the 2 of you, RecLess on the Road, and then of course our listeners when we release the episode. So that's something I'm looking forward to in 25. And I want to just leave that to the 2 of you. What's something you're really looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to doing something with Jay without Tom to complete the
trio.
RecLess cycle.
All right, Jay.
I would be down with doing something with just Shane, just to complete that trio as
Well, I
well.
guess we are
Um,
in Massachusetts. We're doing a session without Tom.
oh yeah, that's
That's true.
true.
That's
We
true.
are doing one. Okay, so we'll get it done.
And I guess we've
Um,
done that once for Tom, actually, ironically.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to piggyback on what Tom said. I'm excited about Massachusetts for multiple reasons. A, I've never been to their conference, and I've really enjoyed visiting and attending other state conferences. And, I've always gotten different takeaways from different states that I've gone to and seen how, different associations run things differently. And it's cool to see that. And obviously being able to do that amongst the three of us as a team and do a session and do a podcast there, that's going to be a lot of fun. And then just exploring, some new folks that that I haven't met yet from that state. So that's going to be fun.
I think for me, RecLess has gone in places we didn't imagine. It was a real selfish pursuit. We talked about it, I think, on the Katie episode, the very first one. We just kind of wanted a mental health break and to chat more and to have some conversations that we have thought have been cool in the past and kind of share them with others. But it just seems like, and it's still anecdotal in a lot of ways, but once or twice a week I get reached out to. Lauren Schrum, shout out Lauren. She's the director in shirts, was at the director summit that Farrell, Bryce, and Chase put on. Had her RecLess podcast shirt on as a fan. She hasn't been on, so she just bought one as a fan. And I have gotten two people that are reaching out to me about sponsoring future sponsorship opportunities because of the shirt that she had, which sparked a conversation. And so it's just one of those things that we get excited about those things, not because we're going to retire off the sponsorship deal that Neela gave us, but the really cool thing is we got to make a fun shirt, which has paid dividends, continues to pay dividends moving forward. But we also got to sponsor some. We got to do our own type of professional development and give back in the way that we were just discussing earlier, right? That we love that aspect is part of people's daily lives, whether it's they're the Buffalo Bill fans and the Ravens fans, or if it's people in our section of the world giving us some funding where we can go out and love on and help professionally develop people in one way or another. And so it's exciting to see that people still think this is a podcast worth listening to and supporting and even putting some financial funding in. We've had a couple different people reach out to us already about potential sponsors, and something else, they'll hear it on this episode. Hannah's going to have me record some sort of sponsorship intro to start this as a way to let people know that we're open for business, that we're going to have a sponsorship packet. And if you're interested, those opportunities will be available in the future. And we're excited about what those dollars will allow us to do for the profession.
Good stuff, Shane and Jay. Thank you for indulging, and our guest has been patiently waiting. We definitely went on a few tangents there. So our guest today has a pseudonym of, for those of you who can't see, the Macho Man, Randy Savage.
Tom, can you do an impression for us?
Does he do the woo? Is he the woo guy? Or is that, no,
I think that's Ric Flair.
That's Ric Flair.
That's very different.
Is Macho Man the Slim Jim guy?
He's the Slim Jim.
All right, so Macho Man Randy Savage.
He does have something he says, though. It's not the woo. You don't know what it is?
Something
about I'm forgetting.
I want to say brother, but that's Hulk Hogan.
That's Hulk. Isn't he the one that goes, "Oh yeah"?
Yeah, that's right. He does. And then he says Macho Man Randy Savage after.
I thought that was the Kool-Aid guy. All right.
That's
so
great.
I had talked to our guest before. I said I love the name, and Chris Bass. If we go all the way back to that episode, we had a real fun conversation about professional wrestling. So once again, off on a tangent. Thank you to this really, really great name. Our guest has been in the industry of parks and recreation since 1993. So the Macho Man Randy Savage reference makes a little more sense, right? Right in that age bracket. Our guest taught for 18 years collectively at UNC Greensboro, UNC Wilmington, and Ohio University.
Oh, did they teach Neela?
I don't know that. I don't believe so, though. But maybe we'll have to ask. Our guest is married to a former powerlifter who has held 15 world records.
Oh, that's impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's impressive.
Our guest
They don't give those out.
is a first international ambassador of the Canadian High Five Run. Have you heard of this?
No.
All right. Well, you can look it up later, Jay. I know you like to look things up while we're going through the clues, but we'll look that up later.
Typically do.
Our guests host a summer mystery gratitude tour each year to be reminded of the importance of human connection and how small actions matter. Our guest also wrote a book quoting 28 park recreation and event professionals titled Leadership by Design. Any guesses?
Oh,
Okay. Our guest, you should get it after this one, is a regular keynote speaker and presenter. And our guest will be joining us in person as the keynote in Massachusetts
oh,
this year. Our
she's a
guest
working
today
genius fan.
is a Working Genius fan, is Annie Frisoli. Annie,
Hey,
welcome.
That's awesome.
Oh, I was gonna wear like the headband with the big sunglasses, but I didn't
I
think
love it. That'd have been great.
Jay,
That is awesome.
can you see Annie?
I do. It just popped up, so this is great.
Awesome.
All right, good stuff. Annie, thank you for joining us. I know you got an incredibly busy schedule, and we are super excited. You came to New York State Recreation and Park Society and was the keynote there in March or April. I think it was April of last year.
April. Mhm.
And Jay and I were speaking in Maryland like the week before or after. And so this is the first New York State conference I've ever missed, guys, in my entire time being in the field and being a part of the association. And of course, I had to miss it. And so I get this amazing opportunity to be connected with Annie now. And so really excited for that. And Annie, as someone, we're going to start it off and kind of get into that rhythm of where we're going to all be together in Massachusetts, learn a little bit more. As someone who pretty much, completes that circuit of going from the different state associations and different organizations, we're excited to see you in Massachusetts. I know you're doing a lot there. You're doing a lot for them. I believe a pre-conference workshop or institute, also the keynote, and then also three regular sessions, right? So tell us a little bit about what you're going to be sharing with Massachusetts and us in about a month and a half.
Yeah, it's coming up quick. And I did not teach Neely. I did not. I didn't
Okay.
hear the question, but he was best friends, I believe, with the director of events. So I met him once before we were both in this world. So
Isn't that crazy? Cool.
just the inquiry there. And in terms of Massachusetts, yeah, very exciting. I guess really we could almost say all things leadership based on the lineup, but definitely excited. I don't know if it's they're doing, which I find really interesting from a conference perspective. They have a director's workshop, a 3-hour workshop the day before. So I'll go in there and just different content, knowing who's in that space for that pre-workshop. And then the keynote, which is just right, that's an honor and a privilege to have that slot because it's just to kind of set the mindset for everybody.
That's the tone, right?
Yeah, it's it's a big honor. I take it very serious, and we're looking at the leadership adventure. I'm excited. But Blazing Trails and Building Legacies is the title, and just to I hope to inspire. And then
That's awesome.
three follow-ups, one on conflict, one on experience by design, which is really good for programmers and event designers, and just looking at the stages of an experience, and then culture by design, always a really popular topic, at least, well, really anywhere, I think, when I arrive into these spaces.
You talked about setting the tone, and I just wanted to ask a follow-up question there. As a keynote, what is your strategy? So I know I told you guys that Annie was in New York, and my team came back and had such great things to say about Annie. Actually, my assistant director was the co-chair of the conference, and I believe Ryan Rockefeller picked Annie up at maybe the airport or wherever it was and brought you in. And he had, and again, the whole team had nothing but great things to say about your energy. And so I just wanted to ask you, I'm so intrigued. I'm a student of presentations and those like you who do the keynotes. I'm always in awe of what you're able to do and trying to get people motivated and really excited. How do you go about it? How do you work the room? Where do you get the energy from?
Ooh. Well, I guess the energy.
That's like 7 questions, by the way.
Yeah. Well, just we can come back to whatever. I get the energy really from, I mean, the park and recreation professionals and event professionals. I'll add that into that. That's I oftentimes tell those that I interact with that I'm thinking about you all a lot. daily. And so just being reminded, because I do get to share a lot of spaces, I listen to the stories, listen to the big all moments. I listen to the tough moments, and really I just continue to process that and think about what is it that that I can bring that just, I always say, if I can be a tiny speck of dust in the work that you do, then that's a good day for me. So if there's just one thing or one moment to remind you of the impact, to remind professionals of the impact they make, because it's important what we do. So I guess I'll start there in terms of, that's what I think. But then from there, I look at every presentation as a design, and I really try to think about what are their emotions as they're entering into this space. It's all good energy. How do I capitalize on that? So then there are the skill, right? Like then there's the hard skills of thinking through, and right, how do you make them laugh, make them cry? No, I don't try to do that, but right, take them on that roller coaster so they walk away feeling something. And Tom, I think I shared, I forget his name again. You knew his name. It was someone at New
Yeah.
York. It was
Bob Kazmarek.
Bob. I'm not gonna botch his name. This will sum it up. He stopped me in the hallway after the New York keynote, and he said to me, he said, "I felt like you were speaking to me the entire time." And he doesn't know how big of a moment that was for me. And that kind of sums up, I don't know, the prep. So I guess Bob now is in my prep. He doesn't know it.
Yeah, Bob, just a real quick short aside on that. Bob's a great guy. He and I'd worked together on the board for a while, and he's a Long Islander, so that accent, that and Annie was explaining this story to me. She did not have the individual's name. She didn't even really describe the individual, but the mannerisms and the way I go, did he have a Long Island accent? Was he about, this tall? And did he present himself a little bit like this way? And she's like, yeah. I goes, is his name Bob? And it's just, yeah, he's a wonderful individual. And that's a great story. I'm so glad that there's people out there that will go the extra mile to tell people what he did with you.
And that's got to be probably the best compliment you can get. Because every time I've gone to a conference and there's been a standout keynote or even just a general session, if it like speaks to you individually, like that's what you want. I mean, and you don't always get the chance to go up and tell that individual. And I'm sure we've all had keynotes that have been at conferences that we've really enjoyed. But the one that I remember the most was actually the Anaheim conference, which was probably like 2010, 2011, something like that. But to this day, like it was one of those that resonated just personally. And I think with a lot of people it felt that way. And it was a very non-traditional keynote. He was
he was a
an
fill-in.
economist. He was an economist. He wasn't a, born and bred Park and Rec person, didn't have experience probably really in the space that he was in, but just like told stories that made an impact and that like hit like with the heart. Cause I remember he told a story about like going to the beach with his dog and just like what that meant and that time that he was having outdoors in the open space and just like connecting with nature and community. And it was just like everyone in the room just felt it. And, obviously I didn't have a chance to tell him that, but as you just stated from Bob, having someone tell you that is very impactful. I can't imagine.
Yeah, he was a fill-in because the person they had advertised up until the week before was the guy from Entourage, Adrian something.
You're right. Yes.
And that guy
Now that you
flaked
said it, I
out on
remember.
him fairly last minute, and they were able to get this economist in. And Jay's right, of all the keynotes, and I haven't been to all of them, and I'm not, Annie, no offense, I'm not a huge keynote person. I don't go to a lot of them, but I went to that one partly to see what I thought would be the flames of this last minute, helter skelter thing that they were having to throw together. And he was absolutely amazing. Made you think of parks differently.
Well, now Annie's gonna think that's if you're in the room, she's gonna, you just come on.
I'm just, if you see me like this,
Pressure is on. Look, I'll be honest, I think it's a totally different skill set from the breakout sessions or you have 3 hours in a workshop. And it was a new challenge for me, honestly. And I'll be honest, I didn't always, I will even still say, you don't always do well. You go into it with your best. but I've learned a lot. Been on a couple of the not even keynote, but what I would say is a larger stage. And you
Mhm.
like every time is a learning, you
Yeah.
learn. So Shane, I appreciate the comment because it's a tough, it's
It
a tough,
is. It's feast
yeah,
or famine sometimes up there.
yes.
I have been in the field 20 years now, and I don't think I'm sure what I am coming more aware to has always been the case, and it's just I'm more sensitive to it now, and I'm seeing it more. But there are park and rec professionals, right? And then there's this adjacency to us, right? There's someone that does keynotes and consultings and architectural things, and they, but they're completely wrapped, like Annie said, in the success and failure in us and want the best for us, want the best for our industry. And we've had people on this. We mentioned Eli earlier and Ryan Hagerness now, people that Michael Biedenstein, who at times were a park and rec professional and have transitioned into that more park and rec adjacent type support system in one way or the other. I don't think we've ever asked anyone, what's it like to live and die with an industry that I guess it'd almost be like a fan of the Buffalo Bills. You're not a player of the Buffalo Bills, but you want the Buffalo Bills to have success, and you're very supportive and hopeful. And is it similar to that in some ways? Is it similar to being a fan? Because to be someone that's adjacent to something, an industry like this, you have to care about it as much or even more than we do, right? And you want the best for it. What's it like to be Parks and Rec adjacent?
Shane, I love this question, and I have thought about this a lot in my time. So I majored in therapeutic recreation undergrad, master's in parks and recreation management. I was asked to teach very young, I was 28 or 29. So I graduated from UNC Greensboro. I was doing event management, working for the Alzheimer's Association. I was doing nonprofit work, but I wanted to do events. And so I was the development coordinator doing the 5Ks, golf tournaments to raise, but it was really more to raise money. But I was like, I just want to do events. And I was asked by a mentor at UNC Greensboro, she said, do you want to teach? And well, my answer was, if you think I should.
Right.
That's another story. We'll see how much time we have
Hmm.
as to why I didn't think I should be in teaching an intro to rec course with higher education. Well, because of that, 28, 29, I'm no longer a practitioner in the
Mm-hmm.
field. I have always felt, I'll be honest, while I was teaching, and then especially about 5 years ago when I started the business, Shane, I'll be honest, I felt a little bit of like, who am I to be
Imposter
talking?
syndrome.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. It was very, who am I to be talking to practitioners about the work that they have done in many different ways that I've never even touched? And so I'll be real honest about that. What I had to learn was that I do have a skill set to bring, right? So as this adjacent, because it is the field is still it's personal and it's professional. It is something that I've studied and I've taught and I'm passionate about from a different perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
that there I feel the same. But the way I go about it, I did have some imposter syndrome of who am I to be doing this? But like I said, it's also very personal, which is probably where that passion comes. Did I answer the question?
No, I think you did. I don't think it's easy, right? I think
Yeah.
just like, if we continue to batter the sports analogy as we are, like there could be a player on the Bills that is good at playing football, but he's not, he doesn't, he gets paid and he can go home and he can compartmentalize and he can even take his off season and maybe he's not playing for the Bills next year and it's a job. It's a job. I'm sure you see that as someone who's a fan of or an adjacency to what we're doing. And you probably at times see a Parks and Rec department with potential and you wish they cared more or you wish they would do this thing that you see. And just like as a fan, you wish someone would, why didn't we roll out and throw to the right? Why didn't Mark Andrews catch that pass that he catches 100 times? And so, I think sometimes when you're adjacent to something, you care about something, all you can do is just care for, hope for the best, be there to support and catch them if it goes terribly wrong. I think there's probably a lot of parallels to sports in some ways, but you almost have to be more committed than we are because good, bad, or indifferent. I've said I was a coach before I got into Parks and Rec, but I've said this is one of the only things I think I could do. I feel like I am built for or designed to do this in some ways. And so I probably do take it for granted. But if I had to live for others doing it, and wanting the best for Pflugerville, but not being the person that makes Pflugerville successful. I think it's a completely different mindset and probably more buy-in. And so I don't think we appreciate that as those that are on this side of the arena that get that support, get that professional development, hear those words of affirmation or, professional development. I don't think we appreciate that enough, so I think it's great.
Since you all mentioned working genius, my geniuses are innovation. So I love, so when I'm working with a team, woo-wee, and they let me in. I've transitioned now where, you get to work with a team for a year. And so, one of my geniuses is that, and then my other genius is galvanizing. So I love
what you want for a keynote speaker, by the way.
And then even the longer, a full day staff development,
sure.
a 6-month leadership, a year leadership where you're working alongside. So I'll capitalize on that too to say I think those geniuses come into play. And I just said to someone the other day, I had to own my strengths. That my strengths were that I can, because of the instructional career that I had, I do have an ability to take information and have people not just hear it, but learn it and feel it and then be able to go use it. Shane, it's a great question, and one I have thought about a lot in terms of, should I be here? And what is this? What is this that I do? What's the impact? Am I having impact? And I started to learn. I'm like, oh yeah, you do, Annie. You do have impact.
And I wrote down working genius, something to follow up. So since you mentioned it, I'll do it now. But what was your origin story to that? Because I think it's impacted all of us. We all took to it quickly, but I think everyone that we know in our group that knows about working genius knows about it because we in our group figured it out, talked about it, have discussed it. And so it's fascinating to see someone that's not in our group care about it. I've heard you've spoken on it. I've heard people in our group talk about how it took you speaking on it for them to buy into the dumb shit we were talking about. And so how does John Stutzman, shout out to John. And so how did you come to Working Genius, and how did you find it practical or applicable in your business and just daily life?
First, can I ask what your geniuses are, since you all have your scores?
Yeah. So mine is, I spell widget out. So I go from WI all the way to T is my frustration. I actually spell widget.
Oh, yeah. I don't spell it, but T is one of my frustrations too.
Yeah.
Anyways, Tom, Jay.
Sure. Yeah. My geniuses are G and T.
Oh, okay.
So it's not the most common from what we've seen too. There's only a couple that have a little combo like that, but I don't know. That's how it worked out for me. And it's, those are I couldn't find, when I found this model and we started talking about it, you start thinking about what really gets you going. It's, I know we've talked about this a million times, but it really makes a whole lot of sense to me. It's what energizes me, is getting things done and motivating or mobilizing people to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and mine are D and E, and it's been kind of an ongoing
He's
joke
a D
with
head.
Shane because I do have a major passion for discernment. So whenever Shane and I are having a conversation, it's typically me discerning everything he says.
You want to talk about relational breakthrough. It really was Jay and I for years have argued about, the color of something. I don't think that's green. You think it's green. We never saw eye to eye on anything. We do presentations on the yin and the yang of everything. And when he took it and he got D, I was like, well, yeah, he's a D head. He's been a D head ever since I know him. It doesn't surprise me at all. He's a discerner. But Nate, who we talked about earlier on the podcast, has created a chart for everyone in our group. Yes. And it's that workflow chart that shows everyone's strengths and their frustrations. And we can pull up at any time and see our little YPN fam where people are ranked on it. And it just lets you know more about someone or confirms what you thought about them pretty quickly.
Yeah. And like Shane said, for years, Shane's always been that wanderer. And every time he'd come up with this big idea, I just want to discern every aspect of it. And I'd be like, well, why do you want to do it that way? That's not going to work. What about this? What about that? And it
didn't come off as discerning to me. It came off as shitting all over it to me. But it provided me the grace to let me be the big picture person I've grown to be, but also provide me the grace to know why Tom cares about something at the end of this when I don't, and why Jay cares about things like discernment, where I'm like, I don't give about discernment. And so it's really allowed us to understand each other better. And as a group, we workout widget in ourselves, right? So we
Yeah,
do
that's
the
amazing.
WI, the widget from all six of our strengths. I can't even spell it because I don't care. It's It's the T in me. I don't give a fuck about spelling anything. So yeah,
That I didn't even, I guess I never really thought about the fact that the three of us have six different geniuses, not one overlap there, which is interesting. Shane,
Yeah.
great job. You almost got through. You were about to say I didn't give a blank, and you held yourself back, but then
I
you
did. I
came
did.
back right with a curse word. So
We're E for everyone, and we're E for explicit. I don't know what else to tell you.
Well,
I love too. I love the piece on the elevation of the conversation because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've sat in meetings and you've watched people try and bring the conversation to the
Mhm.
different elevation, which is really their genius. And I love how they just say, look, let's have clear communication. Let's say this. We're at ideation, we're at activation, we're at implementation, and let's go from there. Shane, I honestly, I read the book. I'm a Lencioni fan
Yeah,
in terms of
yeah,
when I first started the business, I used the
tabletop
five,
group.
yeah, the five dysfunctions. And then I read that and I thought, because I'm not a big, right, in terms of assessments, I'm leery of some, and I don't need to name any, because I
You're
don't
afraid they pigeonhole you too much?
yeah, it's that and then this is so when I got the certification in the Working Genius, this is language they used in the certification that I appreciated. They say this is 80% productivity, 20% personality.
Hmm.
And I say that when I'm working with teams, I'm like, hey,
yeah,
this is how you work. This is what brings you energy. I heard you use that word. And then they also say this is a ranking, not a rating. To say like you're competent in all six. We have to be.
Yeah.
But how can we feed into each other's geniuses now that we know it? And then I just had a conversation with Patrick Hammer this morning out of Colorado, and he used it with his team. And same thing like you all are saying. He said this is major breakthroughs. You have individuals, and not just with his team. That I had one group in Georgia. The one woman, she looked at me and she said, I have carried so much guilt about myself that I wasn't good at something. And she said, I am good. It just that I place it to the side. And then of
I don't love
course,
it.
Yeah.
the judgment piece of others, which I think is prevalent in workplaces if they don't do it the way we do it.
Sure.
I give my own example. I'll say, if you give me a deadline, and Shane, you might relate to this, I'm going to ask you, or you may not, I don't know, but T is my,
Oh no, I'm already tracking with exactly what you're
I'm
saying.
like, I need to know if you say it's due on Friday, the February 7th, I'm going to ask you what time on
Yep.
Friday, February 7th, because there's a big difference between 9 a.m. and 11:59 p.m. And some people, you see them when I'm saying that, like they cringe at me because
Mhm.
they would have had it done on Monday. And yeah.
One, Tom can verify. I told him 1 minute before I opened up this Zoom link for Tom to get on. I was wrapping up my weekly report that's due about 1 minute before I sent it in. Yeah, that's how I live any of those tenacity type things for sure.
Yes.
so Andy, I'm going to take this conversation in a different direction because you just mentioned a name with Patrick Hammer, and Patrick and I have talked a couple times. He's out of Erie, Colorado,
Hmm.
and he is similar to some of the things that he's passionate about that I'm passionate about, and that's just really advocacy for our field and our profession. And what's interesting is the conversation that him and I had was based around how we can bring more awareness to young professionals or college students to enter park and recreation. And as someone that was, in higher ed, I would love to kind of pick your brain on that. And Tom and I are on an academy committee right now, a task force for that, for growing the opportunities of awareness for future careers in park and rec. So,
Thanks for
and
the invite.
I'm sure you know all the facts, and it's obviously a decline in the higher ed world. But what can we do? What do you think we can do as professionals to help bring more awareness to other college students or young professionals, high school students, to pursue this as a career?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good question. And one, I feel like we've been having the conversation for a very long time.
Yeah.
Because I'm about 6 years out now, but I mean, you can go back 6 years prior to that. We started we were very critical of our numbers, as it was a place of education, but we had budgets and numbers also.
Yeah.
Whew, I do think some of the things we're seeing, I think it is in all the small actions, all the small initiatives that we're seeing. Arizona State University, I'm out here in Arizona, Dr. Eric Legg,
Yeah.
they do it. Yeah, so they
I've
do.
talked to him too.
Oh, then great. So that's to me, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I
Yeah.
think it is just all these initiatives where they have high school students, college students, and practitioners, and they do a case study day. And I don't know if I don't want to steal his thunder, but just real big shout out where they're given a challenge, and then at the end of the day, they all present back. And I think it's just these constant. Brian Dixon in Henry County down in Georgia, he has a watering can program where they start with high school students, and I believe he
Hmm.
presented at NRPA on it, but just to expose young people to, but this is a profession, and we all know it, right? Like we've been asked however many times, well, what is it you do? And I think how do we continue to keep telling our story? I know it's an age old. We've been saying this
Yeah.
since I say since 1993, but we're asked to do a lot of things, and we're humble. And I think maybe being a little less humble about what it is we do, it right, not in a meaning for the benefit of the field. So how did that sounds pretty? How does that break down tactical? I think the continued collaboration that we're starting to see,
Yeah.
not the separation, but the acknowledgement of all the pieces that come into play with this.
Well, and it's a win-win if you think about it, telling more stories, sharing more successes will bring more awareness to other people, but it also like gives the recognition to the staff that may not get it if we're not doing those things. And they need to see it. They need to be aware that we're recognizing all their achievements and, giving them kudos for that. But at the same time, you're sharing that with your community that you serve and sharing that with potential future people that wouldn't have known if we didn't do those stories and, highlight all these different great things we're doing.
Yeah, we're a humble group, but almost, I mean, in a way to a fault because we need to keep telling that story. But yeah, I think giving it attention, I think is
Yeah.
good. And I think I like seeing its full attention. Now it's hope, it's not this group over here talking about this group. We've organized that, and I think that's a really great strategy that we're starting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. The organization piece, and Jay mentioned it, that work that the academy is doing. And Shane, we don't need to go
Thanks.
down that road. You were invited. You
Thanks for the
just
invite.
chose not to participate. So this group, it's actually just, if anybody's still listening, right? It's launching February 10th. Jay, I think you're aware of that as well. So
Yep.
February 10th, this group is launching this whole career
What
awareness
date is that? I'll write that
initiative.
down.
That's Monday, right? So
Hey,
Monday, February 10th. And as part of it, there's going to be they did a lot of work. They made a great promotional video. It's about 4 minutes. They're going to work on maybe some shortened versions, but it's really nice. It's very polished. They partnered with NRPA and I believe it was Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society who pretty much did the legwork and the funding, and NRPA provided resources. And then in conjunction with that, there's a toolkit that they're getting out there. And also, NRPA is revamping their career web portal. And I got a little sneak peek of that with Court Jones because on the side of that group, Jay, they had asked us to look into like, is there some kind of a roadmap to the career that you can develop, which is almost impossible because every
Yeah.
state is so unique, right? The states themselves are so unique, let alone every agency. And anyway, this toolkit and what NRPA is doing in the video are just, it's a nice real framework. It's some groundwork for individuals to share. And the people in this group are ready to hit the ground running, whether it's at different state conferences or symposiums or universities, whatever it may be. And I'm glad you mentioned some of those names because I'd love to get Eric and the other gentleman's name was it Brian?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Brian
Brian
Dixon.
Dixon. I'd
Yeah.
love to get some of their input and involvement with the group. So let's just kind of stay along those lines. You taught for 18 years, and I know Jay, you do some work with students, and I've had the opportunity to adjunct at SUNY Brockport, and so connecting with the students and knowing where they're going is really a challenge, right? And I want to say maybe there's some similarities in how you connect with individuals at the professional level, but it's totally different, right? The people at the professional level, especially in Parks and Recreation, they want to be there, they want to learn, they want to be inspired. Students, not so much. And a lot of the time, some of them have this idea that they're going to be the general manager. We talked about that with Tony Lopez, general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles, or they're going to go in and run Disney or some resort in Hawaii. And that is just not necessarily the case. There are so little of those jobs, but so many of our jobs. What did you do as an instructor, to just kind of go more on a micro level to really promote the awareness of the profession and try to get through to the students to, pursue?
Look, the intro to recreation course, I taught it. I never, in 18 years, I never not once taught it, even when I would transition to university or different universities. But the biggest was expanding people's idea because and honestly, day one of the intro to recreation class, and any student, if there's one listening, will say this. The first question I have is, what do people say to you when you say you're a Parks and Recreation major? Just because me and my parents get along great and they're very happy with what I do now. But when I said I was switching from business to therapeutic recreation,
Yep.
ooh-wee, there were some opinions. And I know those opinions don't go away. So the first thing is preparing young people for that conversation. Because you go home for the holidays, you have all the, if all the adults are asking what you're going to do, and the first thing they say is you're not going to make any money. And then all of a sudden, so I think really, again, that goes back to some education. So I would talk about all the different areas. I had a handout and it was somebody else's. It was another university and it listed all the jobs you could do. The commercial sector, MWR, therapeutic, community. Oh, look, now I'm losing your resort, right? So I would list all those things. And so that was, I think, important to see not only what they could do, but also to help. How do you prepare them for those conversations? Their friends are gonna, say things about them and that major, And then I think too, to keep them engaged, I only had one course where I had tests, and then after that, it was all There was never a course that I did not partner with a community partner, and the community partner was always, well, it was almost always, it was either a municipality or it was a nonprofit. And so just like that continued exposure. And then I'll be honest, I was really proud. At one point, I believe I took 33 students to the state conference. And
Ooh.
the scholarships that the state conferences can offer, Ohio was great. So this was mainly when I was at Ohio University. I think every student was able to get a scholarship. Then they volunteered. So that maybe got them a little bit extra. So all of that really mattered. In terms of just that. Yeah, continued exposure was, but
I like
people
that.
engaged, I think those, and I just, we're practical, the field. So I made everything as practical. They had to run a real live event. They had to learn what event management was. There were 5 students partnered with one nonprofit. They had 12 to 14 weeks to learn event management and to host a zero-based budget event. And the only things I worried about, I said you couldn't lose money. Their goal was to make money, but if, you couldn't lose money, risk management, and don't smear the name of the department or the university, right? So those were, and then other than that, but it was just practical. Sometimes in event management, they learned what they didn't want to do, which was event management, because that's not for everybody. But I'm like, then you learned you can still explore all the other parts of the field.
Shane, I know you had something. I love that we're having this conversation off of the heels of that work that the career development group's doing. And, I didn't even, you have these conversations. That's why you bring some people to the table, because you get all these different ideas and concepts. And I got to tell you, when you're actually in the major and you're 2 or 3 years into it, there's some selling points, right? You start to learn a lot more. You get that practical piece. You go to a conference. We see that, right? At the NRPA conference, guys, you see all the students having a great time. They go on a trip with 10, 15, 20 of their friends and students in the class, and they probably have a ball. I think the tricky piece is getting them into the major, right? And I'm not going to make light of it, or I am, I guess, but I think you cracked the code, Annie. No tests.
There you go.
I mean, I love what our researchers and our educators, our traditional educators do. I also have done what I've done from a practitioner side, and it's just definitely a whole different side of the educational experience for a student.
Well, and there's also the side that you just mentioned. If you're partnering with a municipality or with a nonprofit, you're giving them real life experience.
Yeah.
So then they're going to be more prepared when they go enter the workforce versus just providing a test every week or every couple of weeks. It's not helping them grow and enter that real world.
I think, and we've talked about it before on this podcast, but there's not another industry like us that I'm talking about the absolute poorest person in our communities to the absolute richest, from the person with the least amount of impact or political stature or, ability to positively affect legislation to whoever you would think, the current president of the United States. I guarantee you Donald Trump has either walked in a public trail, participated in a youth sports event, or his kids participated in some sort of sports event, or he's been in a rec center before. I don't think anyone in our country could say they have lived a life where they weren't impacted at some point. They didn't interact some point with our industry, whether it was their little league baseball team or a trail around the corner from their house or the 4th of July event that they went to every single year. The problem is none of them know it's us. And that's the damnedest part about it, right? And that even, when I got out of coaching, I told my dad I was going from coaching to, and I've said this on the podcast, he didn't know how to tell people what I was doing. Shane works for a city now. What does he do? I think he just coaches for the city. I don't understand it, right? Like he's still coaching, I think, but he's just coaching for a city because I would run the sports leagues and all that stuff. And he couldn't wrap his head around that. That has been an industry for 20 or 30 years that, I mean, he took me to little soccer games, and he took me to a trail, and he took me to Burleson's 4th of July event every single year. And he didn't know how to explain what I was doing as a professional because I think we're so spread out. We don't have this point or message to speak to, and that every agency is a little different, and we don't have certifications. And I think what's killing our major in some ways is that you can come to this industry in any way. And so you don't have to have a major. I mean, I can't go be a lawyer tomorrow. I can't go be a doctor tomorrow. I can't be an engineer tomorrow, but I could be a park and rec professional with no experience in parks and recreation if the town will give you an opportunity. And so the major isn't required, which has made it more difficult. We see majors drying up, but it's amazing that our industry has the national impact. I guarantee you there is not one human being that you can't 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon them into the park and rec industry in some way, that they have somehow, some way been impacted at one point in their life. And most of those people don't even know it's a full-time job. In fact, at some point, we've all had the interaction where they're like, you get paid to do this full-time? I thought this was a summer gig. I thought you were coaching in the spring and fall and then running camps in the summer, And so it's an incredible industry that has a huge impact, and we are our worst national spokesman. I don't know how to make that better.
Why don't you fix that, Coach?
Well, I'll just join whatever. I mean, it looks like February 10th, y'all figured it out. So I don't know why the hell you need me anymore. So
It's the right direction. We don't know what the impact will be from that, but I will say the toolkit, the video, the awareness that it's going to hopefully bring. Like I'm going to a meeting next Thursday with the Cabarrus County School District, and I'm going to show that video to about 30 different career development counselors that come from 7 different high schools. Hopefully they want to go back and they want to share that with students. Will they? I don't know yet, but I'm hoping it does make that little push to bring them, hey, when students come to my office and they want to talk about career options, they want to talk about like next steps, like, hey, watch this video, check out this website, go talk to Jay. And if it does, then that's fantastic.
And Jay, that's what, and you all will know this, depending on your department at the university, so giving the university, we were discovery majors. So Tom, we get folks. Now the good thing is we could adapt. So they'll find us maybe junior year because they took the one gen ed that was the intro to rec class. Then the other piece of that is we're relying. So Jay, getting back to what you just shared, we were relying on people who don't know us to market us. And again, it's that we're a little bit of unknown, and so. And again, now you're taking faculty of people that have tenure pressure on them they're doing research, they're doing service, they're doing teaching, and then, you have to market too. And some universities, you had folks, you had to really, I almost thought, I'm like, oh gosh, and we tried to get into the career development offices at the university, but we're also one of, however many majors. We did have, at times you had a representative, but they're typically still not only representing you as a Parks and Recreation degree. But it's just, you're like, we're kind of just hoping. It's like, hope you can't. I used to talk about that in programming class. people love the design, but we would never tell people we had these great programs you could come to. And we've gotten better, since the 90s in terms of our marketing. But for a lot of times, we'd design it and then we wouldn't tell anyone about it. And I think we do a little bit of that with the degree. We have this degree, and how do we tell people about it? And I know you were talking about high school, but we're
Yeah.
we're a little guilty of it at the university level.
Let me just ask you a quick question. What are the years you were at Greensboro?
I was there. I earned my degree. I think I was doing my degree 99 to 01.
Okay.
Good. Jay, I don't keep real. Look, tenacity is not my.
No, you're good. I was just curious.
That I have. And then there was a couple years, I can't remember then when I came back.
Okay.
And that was the first place I taught there. And I'd have to look back at my Vita to see when I was there.
You're good. It's about an hour and a half from me, so I was just curious.
Oh, nice. Okay. NC State has a really strong program.
They do. And NC State is definitely in North Carolina as a whole. They're definitely leading the university scene of Park and Rec for sure. Clemson's great. They're not that far from me as well.
They're strong
but
enough
those are
they don't
definitely-
even let Jay speak at those things. That's their level.
Yeah, I work closely with some of the folks from NC State when I'm on supervisory management school with NRPA, and they're partnering with NC State, so they're great to work with.
So what have you asked them? I mean, what's their secret? Because even working at all different schools than NC State, I've always known of them and their numbers when I was a faculty member.
Yeah, I think their numbers are declining a little bit, but it's the smaller schools that I think are really taking the hit. And NC State is a large school. Tom mentioned SUNY Brockport, just a small outside of Rochester, undergrad of 7,000, 8,000 people. Those are the schools that I think from other conversations I've had that are really struggling versus the NC States of the world that have 20, 30,000 plus in that capacity. Not obviously in the major, but just overall on an annual basis. So, and they actually just have, they're regionally set up great because of where they are in the state with so much competition for young students to apply. And then obviously the facilities there are fantastic. And you also just have a lot of people that have gone through the program that have ties to it, then kind of use that as a reference point, or they're cheerleading it because you have such a large alumni, I guess I should say.
Well, this is a great conversation. I want to keep us on schedule. And as they say, we say far too often, we could have been talking about this for hours. So let's transition to the
Rapid
section.
fire.
Yes, we like to call it rapid fire, Annie, and it's for us to get to know a little bit more about you in a more quick question format, which they could be 10-minute responses too, but we're going to see what we can do today. My first question for you is going to lead into, or go back, I should say, and tie into what we led off with today. And that is what we're looking forward in 2025. How about you, Annie? What's something really, aside from Massachusetts, don't give me that easy answer. I know you're looking forward to being in the same place with us, but outside of Massachusetts, what's something Annie's looking forward to in 2025?
I'll go back to one of my intro points, one of my mystery points. I started this concept of a summer mystery gratitude tour where really I had to do it virtual last year, but the year before that I show up with different municipalities that I've worked with over like the past year or two, and I just pop in and I'm doing a full on like road trip. Like I'm taking like in the truck driving the month of June. So that I'm pretty excited about that.
Do you give them a heads up at all?
No.
Just show up?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a big miss. Like so I have thought about this. So the first year, you maybe drove. Like I'm originally from Ohio, live in Arizona now, but I've worked with a lot of groups from Ohio, and I'll stay at my parents' house. But I might do like a 3-hour drive. You do a 3-hour drive, and they're not there.
Yeah.
And then but Tom. The times that are there. Kristen Marks out of Ohio. Best response ever. So it was worth when you do get the surprises worth it. But I have thought about the design. TBD.
That's the tenacity in you to not want to plan it out and show up
And I was just gonna say the tenacity in me actually that scares the heck out of me, right? That you would just show up and I'm in the middle of trying to do something. I don't know how I would react. But did Kristen react with a Randy Savage? Oh yeah.
Well, it was pretty, I mean, next best thing, really. Next
Okay.
best thing. Yeah, it was. And don't get, I was able to meet with some others. One, I went to her house. She works from home, Marin. She's a executive director of the Pittsburgh Irish Festival. And she works from home. Now I was on her doorstep, but there's this epic video of me. She had like the ring, the whatever,
Ring cam.
security cam. And I thought it would be funny to then take photos, like different photos on her porch swing
That's
and all
funny.
these other things, when really she recorded me the entire time. So I mean, some funny stuff comes from it. But
Great.
I have thought about, should I be somewhat more strategic? We'll see. I don't know. Anyways, I'm looking forward to it because it's fun and funny.
You mentioned you're in Arizona, and this weekend is the Waste Management Golf Tournament, which is for those that have not ever watched golf. This is a very untraditional
This
golf tournament.
event's for you.
Yeah, have you ever been? I just want to know if you've ever been to that because that always looks like a crazy fun tournament to go to.
I moved here, I mean, I'm 50. Kind of, it got shut down last year or the year
It
before
did.
because of like
That's
complete
it's Bill's
debauchery.
Mafia adjacent, I believe. Honestly,
Pretty much.
Like people were so drunk, they're probably so mad we're getting like I know we have the masses are listening to this, but anyways, I like to have a good time, but
no, you're not
I
interested
have
in
not
that.
been to it.
Okay.
So this is like the Happy Gilmore type tournament,
Essentially,
Jay? Is
yeah,
that
yeah.
what this is?
You
Okay.
don't
for
know
sure.
about this?
No, I've never heard. We'll have to
Oh,
talk
dude.
about it another time because
It's on brand for waste management for sure.
okay, all
And
right.
it makes the local news for various reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of an interesting cross section of humanity and a unique watch, your husband is a powerlifter. Have you ever been to those meets? My dad was a powerlifter, was a national powerlifter, and I powerlifted in high school and college and a little bit out as well. And my dad owned a gym growing up, and so it's a unique cross section of society for sure.
Well, he and I married later in life.
Gotcha.
Look, I always have to say first marriage, right? Because
Gotcha.
people are like, it's first or say it's first for me.
Nice.
But you may know him. So we don't have the same last name. Kenny Patterson. He is a product of West Side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So he's going to be mortified. He hates when I do this. He doesn't hate it. That's a strong word. But he was in the documentary West Side versus the World.
Yeah.
So that's who I'm married to. But I know it was all before I knew him. But I love telling people.
Yeah. Hell of a
It
powerlifter.
it came up in the New York keynote and it disrupted. Like you'll see people go straight to their phones during. So you have to be careful where you drop that content and they look them up. They're like, I saw your husband.
Westside was a mecca. When Columbus is hosting an RPA, he could show you around.
Well, the Louis.
Yeah, passed away a couple years ago.
Passed, so the gym closed with him.
Oh, did it really? Yeah. Without him, I guess who's running it?
Yeah.
I did Westside Principles as well. We watched Westside videos. It was absolutely it's a small niche community for
Who's
sure.
your dad?
Kim Mize, and his training partner was Doug Young, who held the world record in the bench press for a long time. And so, there's a photo of Doug Young holding me up as a kid or whatever. And my dad took his principles, and Doug Young owned a gym, and then my dad opened a gym in the Fort Worth area. So, yeah.
Oh, well, look, I'll run the names past.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to your intro, I know you and I had a great opportunity to talk about this, but I would love it if you can share with the gentleman here and our guests, our listeners, what exactly does it mean to be the first international ambassador of the Canadian High Five Run?
It doesn't mean much. Actually, when you told Jay to look it up, I was like, well, don't look it up. I don't know that it's written anywhere. But, okay, long story medium, because I know we're on a time slot. When I was teaching at Ohio University, had a grad student, was from Canada. His name was Vince. And then I'd follow him on Instagram, like after just after post school. He's another Italian. We were friends. But he was while he was in school. Anyways, when he would go home, I'd see him on these high five runs, and he'd be like running through the streets, be a group of people running through the streets of Toronto, giving people high fives. That's it. And I said, I'd like to do this with Parks and Recreation students. And he put me in contact with Blake Fly and his best friend Elan. They met in college, and because Vince is like, well, I don't run it, and you need to talk to these two. It's just these two. You all would love them. They're not Parks and Rec specific. They're just these two gentlemen that just want to spread, like they just want to make people smile. One is a keynoter, has done a lot of talking with youth. Another entrepreneur, Elan has his own business. Anyways, they allowed me to run it with my own students. So we ran through the streets of Athens, Ohio, gave people high five. Great time. Blake even Skyped in. Oh, that's given you some little bit of years there. Talk to them about the why and the impact on community. Well, I thought if I kept running this, I said, well, I should just drive up there. So I went to Canada for one day, ran through the streets of Canada with the high five run, and they are clever, right? They're that clever, just fun. And they presented me at the end with like this little plastic trophy and a certificate that said I was the first international ambassador of the Canadian High Five Run.
Love it.
That's awesome. Maybe we'll do one of those in Boston or in the Massachusetts conference.
I think they.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I think they have a pretty big run there already.
Well, I'm saying during conference week, not during the Boston Marathon.
Not the Boston Marathon.
Yes,
We'll call it the biggest run in Boston and just piss everybody off.
It'll be the biggest high five run.
The biggest high five
Oh,
run.
man.
Oh, that's a good one. Anyways, yeah, it's it was a good time. It was pre-COVID too, right? So like the high fives,
Okay.
but we were like just touching it up.
Well, Annie, we had a blast and a lot of laughs and smiles, and that's what you do, and that's the impact that you make, and we are really excited to get to be in the same place with you after missing out in New York. But I get to see you and meet you in person in Massachusetts with Shane and Jay here, and we're looking forward to it.
Episode will be interesting with you now. We've already done one with you.
Thank you for all you do. I always say not just the impact on your communities, but the impact you all have on the world, and especially through this source that you all have designed and created a great sense of community for so many. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Total honor.
Cool. Thanks for being on.
Yeah,
We're looking forward
appreciate
to
it.
seeing you in person.
Yep, we'll see you in about a month and a half.
See you soon. Thank you all. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So yeah, I said this in my intro, I believe, or at one point when Annie was joining, and that's how it was explained to me, is that this keynote, she was just this ball of energy, and you can kind of see how that projects and portrays here. Jay,
we are supposed to interview her in like a month, right?
So I think you have that mixed up. Maybe I just did some, behind the scenes. Remember, we ultimately ended up saying, hey, this would be really cool if we can get this to Massachusetts before their conference.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes, to just kind of get people hyped up about RecLess, of course. No, but really to get them hyped up about Annie. Yeah. And so yeah, the guest in Massachusetts, you're not gonna know until the moment they walk in the room.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Are you gonna know?
Yeah, I already do. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm the lead on this one, guys. So
look at him.
As opposed to Oklahoma, where we kind of predetermined, we didn't know what we were doing. We still don't really know what we're doing, but at least in this one, we had a learning experience from Oklahoma to try to make it as authentic as possible. And we're going to see how that goes. So yeah, guys, I hope
she was great.
That one.
Yeah. That's one of those that you hear the name of her for so long. You're excited to meet her.
And I don't know if you guys were on it, but if you recall, I think it was, I want to say like 6 years ago, she did a webinar with partnership with YPN. And that was my first time hearing her speak. And I think Katie Keller is the one that organized it or hooked it up. So, I mean, you were invited. You probably just didn't come. I must have missed.
No, it's probably lost. It's probably my spam.
Yeah. But she did great then. And ever since then, I've, obviously looked up to seeing her speak and other things that she's been involved with. So it's great to have her on.
This was really cool. She was great. We say it all the time. We could have gone hours more. But we were just getting started.
That's our catchphrase, guys.
Yeah.
Could have gone for hours.
We're consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Annie's awesome. I'm really glad we had the opportunity to do that and, get to meet someone like that before we go to that conference. That's kind of neat too, right? Establish a little
Yeah, it's awesome.
relationship that typically doesn't, you don't get that opportunity. So I'm glad you both enjoyed it. I hope our listeners enjoyed it. Those who stuck around with us, Becca, Esther,
Yeah.
Melissa, and, maybe a couple others. But
And
hey,
Rooney.
Rooney.
and Rooney. Sorry about
Got to
the
reference Rooney.
hashtag earmuffs.
Apparently
So,
she's at the Wisconsin Parks and Rec conference, our
yeah.
YPN chat. Someone saw her. So
Well, you know what? Trista has inspired me. I got to get my kids to be like park and rec kids in a different way. We already talked about how our kids are park and rec kids, but I love
you
the
have
concept
two?
that I do. I have two. One's name is
That's
Amelia.
that's crazy.
That's
I didn't know that.
the second one's name is Jack.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Ooh,
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
New power rankings out this week.
I flipped the script on you guys there.
It does change every week. Power rankings do.
Right.
All right, everyone,
Awesome.
guys. I had a great time with you both and with Annie. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time, and everybody else. We'll see you on RecLess next time.
Awesome.
See ya.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Follow RecLess Podcast on YouTube for more content and outtakes. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow along on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for news and exclusive clips. RecLess Podcast is edited and produced by Hannah Mize. Thanks for listening. See you next time.